Welcome. My name is Tara, and I am the CEO of YWCA Glendale and Pasadena. Welcome to our 24th annual Heart and Excellence Awards, our first ever event under our new name as we recently joined forces with YWCA Pasadena Foothill Valley. We are so grateful that you made the time and the commitment to be here and be part of this very special event. Today's program will be shaped around two powerful conversations with our 2021 Heart and Excellence honorees, industry and community leaders whose work amplifies the YWCA's mission of eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. Our event's theme is Rise to Recovery, and I can think of no better call to action to guide our discussions. Together, we'll be discussing the experiences and tools we cultivated during a year forever shaped by a global pandemic, a shadow pandemic of violence against women, and a watershed year of social justice and system change. Today is an opportunity for us to hear about how our honorees have navigated an unknown terrain, reimagining their work and re-envisioning what it will take to move us toward a more just and equitable society. One where together we can rise to recovery. We could not have created today's event without the support of our sponsors, and I'm honored to recognize our community leaders who stepped up into this moment with us. Our gold sponsor, Avery Dennison. Our silver sponsors, Adventist Health Glendale, Dignity Health Glendale Memorial Hospital, SoCal Gas, and Supervisor Kathryn Barger. Our bronze sponsor, Alexa and Scott Russo, Carol Ann and Aldister Burton, DataStream IT, Rima Cameron, Schweitzer Law Partners, Senator Anthony Portantino, Tony and Vince Espinosa family, and Valerie and Bruce Merritt. And our community sponsors, Anita Gabrielle, Ayana Rose, Bolton and Company, Chief Carl Povolitis, Ellen Simler, Fisher Phillips, Kathryn Van Houten, Lisa McCarty, PhD Ministries International, me, Tara Peterson, and USC Verdugo Hills Hospital. Thank you all. And before we head into our conversations, I would like to acknowledge the custodians of the land upon which we are holding this event and honored to do our work. We lift up the Tongva and Gabrielle tribes who are stewards of this land, who continue to live and care for this area today. I now like to introduce Jessica First, a YWCA Glendale and Pasadena board member who will be joining me today to introduce our speakers. Welcome, Jess.
Hey, thanks, Tara. It's great to be back this year and celebrating our 2021 Heart and Excellence Award nominees and recipients. So we're incredibly happy to have you all join us for these important conversations with the women who are on the front lines of change in Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena. Our first conversation is with industry leaders in government, education, healthcare, business, and philanthropy. Is Kathryn Barger with us? Okay, so the first person I want to introduce is Supervisor Kathryn Barger. A familiar face to all of us. This year, we have watched her take the podium every day to provide us with critical updates on COVID-19, providing the facts we need to stay safe and informed of this evolving public health crisis. Supervisor Barger represents the 5th district, the largest district in Los Angeles County, spanning from Laverne to Casatac, from the Ventura County line to the San Bernardino County line. The 5th district serves almost 2 million residents who benefit from her leadership. We are honored to recognize her with the 2021 Public Service Award. Next, I would like to introduce Superintendent Vivian Ekchian. Brings us over 30 years of educational experience with a proven track record of implementing reform to Glendale Unified School District, which serves over 26,000 students from pre-K to 12th grade. Vivian made tremendous strides in implementing diversity, equality, and inclusion initiatives in the district, while also ensuring curriculum content is diverse and anti-racist. She's led our community through the challenges of COVID, overseeing the district's reopening, centering teachers and families' voices and needs. We are proud to recognize her work with the 2021 Education Award. Reverend Cassie McCarty is one of Glendale's incredible public health care heroes. Cassie provides spiritual support to patients at Dignity Memorial as the Director of Mission Integration. And this year, her leadership was pivotal in supporting healthcare workers and providing patients and their families with compassion and care as they experienced the devastating impact of COVID-19. A close friend of the YWCA, she has been both a leader and partner, serving on the Coalition for Anti-Racist Glendale and the Violence and Human Trafficking Response Task Force, which ensures that survivors are supported in their trauma and that staff have the tools to provide trauma-informed care. We are honored to recognize her work with the 2021 Healthcare Award. Alicia Procello is a powerhouse in the corporate space. She has dedicated her life's work to integrating community support into the corporate sphere and oversees initiatives in over 50 countries as the president of the Avery Dennison Foundation and vice president of corporate responsibility for Avery Dennison Corporation. Ms. Procello has developed a successful global employee engagement model that measurably enhances the company's reputation through employee morale, recruitment, local government relations, and ultimately growth leading, with a focus on ensuring impact and opportunity. We are honored to recognize Alicia with the 2021 Business and Industry Award. So with that, Tara, please take it away.
Thank you so much. Wow, hearing your introductions reminds me how lucky we are as a community to have such talented leaders, especially during a time when excellence in leadership is what is needed to carry us through these year of endless challenges. Kathryn Barger is supposed to be here with us today. She's running a little behind, so we're gonna go off script a little bit, but I want to still start this conversation with some tailored questions on how COVID-19 has impacted your work and what opportunities you see as we emerge from this crisis for advancing our mission of a more just and equitable world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. So I want to start with Superintendent Ekchian. This year, you've had to navigate both situations. You had to navigate impossible situations and make hard decisions that drew heated response and criticism. For women in leadership, those criticisms can also take on elements of sexism. How do you, as a fearless female leader, navigate those moments when challenges to your leadership and decisions are rooted in sexism?
So what has helped women like me in the responsibility that we carry is to always maintain the belief system we've had, and putting students at the center of every conversation has been incredibly helpful. I don't necessarily think of myself as a female leader going through a school district for the first time after decades of male leaders leading it, but I think of myself as an empathy agent, and recognizing what's important really drives the work. So I've made every effort to eliminate the negative by drowning it with the positive. I know for us to navigate overnight from the stable school district functions that we had to a pandemic and pivoting to technology and closing the digital divide and having a behind the curtain view has been a challenge for all of us. So always using empathy as a first strategy has been helpful. Secondly, leaning in, being at the table in every conversation, partnering with our community leaders that you see today that I'm so honored to be sharing this stage with, has helped us move into a direction of not recognizing the barriers, which could be based on sexism or racism, but really focusing on what's best for our youth in our community and having all voices heard, having the visible choices made by parents and community, and really being the institution that levels the playing field for our youth and lifts communities out of poverty while we're going through the pandemic.
Thanks, Vivian. I love the term empathy agent. And I know that personally, when I had the opportunity to first meet you, when you first started in this new role, I definitely knew from that first moment, that conversation, that we had somebody that was willing to listen to our parents and to our students, and not just from the sake of listening, but listening to really hear what the issues are. So thank you so much for your leadership.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Cassie, I don't think anyone has had more devastating look into the pandemic and those on the front lines of healthcare response. We thank you for the work you have done in providing spiritual care to patients and their families. Can you share a bit about that experience? How did your team prepare for these moments? And how were you able to take care of yourself so you can continue caring for others?
Thank you, Tara. It has been a difficult year with the pandemic here at the hospital, but I also want to acknowledge that it's been difficult for everyone experiencing this pandemic. So I just want to just acknowledge that and say that we've all been in this together. But in terms of what we've experienced here at the hospital, I actually want to, and the spiritual care that we provided for patients and staff, rather than focus on the challenging moments, I actually want to talk about the inspiring moments that still stay with me to this day. So I have a couple of concrete examples. Early on, when the pandemic hit, I remember this one patient that came in, and this is the time when our visitor policy had to become more restricted to keep our patients and our staff safe, and to keep the community safe. And this patient asked to see a chaplain. I met with her and expecting maybe she wanted prayer or spiritual counsel or something. And actually all she wanted was a German chocolate cake. And I thought, you know what, we could take care of that. So a few of us went to a local store, and at that time there was long lines. If you may remember those long lines in the beginning. And we found a mini German chocolate cake. It was perfect. So as a chaplain, I thought it was a divine moment myself. So we brought it back to her, and she was just tearful, getting this small but yet significant item from us when her family, when her loved ones couldn't bring that for her. And to meet that small need, it lifted not only her spirits, but the team's spirits, because in moments when life was changing minute by minute for everyone, in that moment, in that minute, we were able to bring her some comfort and some love. And that meant so much to all of us. And the other example I want to mention is when the peak COVID surge hit LA County, so late December, January, February, I can't tell you how many families I would meet with. And even when their loved one was struggling with COVID here at the hospital, or maybe even dying of COVID, I can't tell you how many family members would say to me, Cassie, we know how hard everyone is working here. We know the hospitals are overwhelmed right now with patients, and everyone is just doing their very best. And they would thank us for taking care of their loved one. And, that brings me to tears even now because of that depth of gratitude. And it just it reminded me that, again, we're all in this together. And so this teamwork, the sense of teamwork, not only with the staff here, but with the community, became very strong and apparent. And those moments of us connecting with the community, that's been so inspiring for not only myself, but for all of us to maintain our resiliency and our sense of strength.
Thank you so much for sharing those two stories, Kathy. I really, really appreciate that. And I want to just take a moment to welcome Supervisor Barger into the conversation. Thank you for joining us and being here. And I'm going to go actually go to you now, Supervisor Barger. And we just started the conversation with Vivian, who is the superintendent of Glendale School District, and talking about her leadership role, and Cassie as her on the front lines working with healthcare. But you in your role as the supervisor of LA County, and also one of the biggest counties, even one of the biggest districts. I really would love to hear a little bit about your thoughts about when the first moment, that pandemic, and when did you know that this wasn't something that was going to go away anytime soon, and that our community and country would be facing stay-at-home orders to stop the spread of COVID-19?
Thank you, and I apologize for being late. I'm probably the most punctual person, but I was trying to figure out how to get in, so I apologize. And I want to thank you and the YWCA for honoring me with the Public Service Award. I truly am humbled to be recognized alongside such amazing women that we have with us today. So in answer to your question, the pandemic truly did rock everyone's world. And I think there are two moments that really struck me. And the first was when I got a call from Mayor Garcetti, and it was in March. And he called to say that he had just heard that Northern California had implemented a safer at home order. They called it shelter in place. And when you hear shelter in place, it definitely kind of rocks your world. And I thought, how can this be happening? But sure enough, he was right. They ordered shelter in place up north. We both knew that it was only a matter of time until we would have to do the same thing. And then in June, we saw the numbers continue to increase after we had been on an extended period of closures. We decided to call it Safer at Homes because we didn't want people to feel a sense of fear, even though clearly having everything shut down and being told you had to stay home definitely, I think for many people was a very, very frightening experience. But that was the moment that I realized that we were truly in this for the long haul and that this issue was not going to be resolved quickly. Then we had the civil unrest, which happened around the same time. And to me, it was evident that the tensions that were already there were further exacerbated by the COVID restrictions. I could really sense how angry and frustrated people were that the health orders were in place for the summer, but also that there was so much issues surrounding people of color and equity that were really rising to the top. I look back on these times and what was just said in terms of, I saw such incredible character in so many people that came out to help the elderly, to do so much. But I tell people as the chair, we had the extended closures, which truly did wreak havoc on every aspect of people's lives, their livelihoods, social connections, access to education, and the emotional well-being, and their faith. And in 2020, I happened to be the chair of the board, which was a hugely unexpected challenge for me as a leader. The role of chair is always important, but it took on a much more significant role for me during the pandemic. So I was responsible for signing all the executive orders, which range from declaration of local emergency to a rent and eviction moratorium to the curfews during the civil unrest. These were hard decisions that I had to make, but I think the choices we made were in the best interest of the safety of all of our LA County residents. So I just have to, say that there's not really two, as you can tell. I have to get my mind around this last year, as I think we all do. But I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be a public servant during this time.
Thank you, Supervisor Barger. Definitely know that you had to navigate impossible situations and make decisions that are hard and difficult to make, that often, draw heated responses and criticism. And I think as watching you navigate that and doing it with so much grace and compassion, and that's why we really wanted to lift you up and honor you this year with the Public Service Award. So thank you for that. I want to switch gears to Alicia, because I think it's really important, as we think about COVID-19, and I know for me as a nonprofit service provider, our private and public partnerships with foundations and corporate sponsors and individuals really makes a big deal on whether or not you're going to be able to really serve the people that are in crisis. And I know it's been a remarkable year for philanthropy as many businesses and foundations begin to rethink in ways in which they distribute funds and what they require of grant recipients on the front lines of community services. How have you led in this shifting environment? And what has Avery Dennison learned from its community partners and grant recipients on how this will shape the future of giving?
Well, thank you very much for the honor. And it's such a pleasure to be in the company of the other women that I'm being honored with. So let me start with that. You know, in the beginning of the pandemic, there was that statement that we're all in this together. And I think what we learned is we're all in the situation together, but our experiences are quite different. And I think when you think of something like the YWCA, you know, you serve women who may be facing domestic violence issues, and those increased. So although we were all at home, people who are experiencing some real life crises, you know, their experiences were expounded. So we learned about homelessness. We learned about food insecurity. We learned about, you know, students that don't have any access even to the internet. So I think it exposed how many people are living close to the edge. So, sorry, my puppy in the background. So, you know, as a foundation, we've done a couple things, and that I think a lot of people have done in philanthropy, is we've really had to look at equity and trust. We've had to trust and say the people that we're going to fund know their business the best. And if you are a domestic violence shelter, but you really need to feed your clients, that has to come first, right? We really need to trust that you know what's best. And I think issues around equity have become very important. You know, people who are living close to the edge need support. So we're foundations like to do things that are innovative, and we like to, you know, be creative in the grant making. We can't ignore the fact that people need some really basic services. I'll give you an example of one of the ways that we address that in the US particularly. When COVID started, we reformatted one of our programs, and we asked all of our employees in the US, what nonprofits are doing good work in your community? And we funded those groups, and they weren't aligned with our traditional pillars, you know, of what we normally fund, but we funded food banks, and we funded shelters, and we funded schools that work with, you know, disabled children who needed support. So it really is about that trust and addressing equity.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alicia. And I just want to, you know, this whole thing about equity is definitely a word and a conversation we're hearing in multiple sectors, right? And also within the school district. And Vivian, you know, I know that, you know, our first relationship really began before COVID-19, and really looking at education and equity and making improvements in Glendale Unified School District to make sure all students feel welcomed. Can you just quickly kind of share, you know, how that work, how you have been able to continue to do that work while also dealing with the pandemic?
So I'm so appreciative of your asking me that question, because we've tried to maintain the focus on what matters most, and that will carry us forward. So when we look at widening the equity gap in our nation, we all have opportunities to make a difference in our 50-foot radius, which is something that we have really focused on. So the digital divide was clearly here, distributing devices to families and hotspots that did not have them. Nutrition services, being hands-on every day, multiple meals a day without asking questions. So starting there, maintaining the conversation about what is culturally relevant and responsive, and changing our curriculum to reflect the diverse community that we serve. Recognizing that regardless of the number of students representing a particular subgroup, what matters is that we have a window view of what is happening in the world, but also a mirror view, so that every child can see themselves in the curriculum that is being utilized in our schools, and also that the standards are universal in terms of equity and inclusion, and that we promote the anti-racist agenda with the steps that we take, so that changing the curriculum is real. Having a resolution passed by our board unanimously saying that we will be recognizing every student group and having panel discussions and having student voices heard, making sure that parents have the opportunity to weigh in through surveys. So it isn't always the loudest voices that carry the entire school district's mission and vision. Specific steps, the list is long, but the reality is what we carry forward is that what we had before wasn't sufficient. So in our stabilizing our school district beyond the pandemic, the new normal will be a better normal. It will be a more improved. And for those furthest from the opportunity, will be closer to the opportunity, as we will make sure that they remain in the center of our conversation and their needs are met.
Awesome, thank you. And before we end, I just want to just ask each of you, and I know we didn't tell you this, but if you can just give me one word of, for the future, and as we kind of go towards recovery, just one word that you would like to leave us with today, or one just quick message you would like us to leave our participants with, the people that are watching, so that we can move forward and really think about how we begin to recover and rise to recovery. Kathryn Barger?
Well, I think of resilience, and I would say that resilience is what is going to get us through this. And I've seen it in the communities throughout the entire pandemic.
Awesome, thank you. Cassie?
I would say hope. I think we have this amazing once-in-a-life opportunity to be different as individuals, as organizations, and as a community. And that's the gift, if anything, that COVID has brought us.
Thank you. Vivian?
I think it's stronger together. We've learned that when in crisis, we come together, and we should be doing that beyond this pandemic at all times.
Alicia?
And I'd say it's really about love, right? It's about loving people. It's about loving yourself. And it's about being authentic in that, to acknowledge that we still are a community. We are always a community, and we need each other moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for your time today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I just feel so honored and privileged to know you all. So thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, what a privilege to get an inside perspective from these leaders on how they and their sectors have been navigating challenges of this moment in time. What an honor to be able to recognize them and connect with them. I'd like to switch gears now and talk about a concept that took on a whole new meaning this year, the idea of home. What it means to be a home, to find a home, to be safer at home. As survivors continued to shelter in place with those harming them, and as children learned from their homes, and as our communities processed the calls for racial, gender, and social justice at home, home took a whole new meaning. It definitely did for us at the YWCA as essential service provider. We became home for survivors seeking shelter, for girls attending empowerment programs online, and a home for a new coalition for an anti-racist Glendale. I'd like to invite you to watch a special video we created about our YWCA, a home for our community.
For 95 years, YWCA has been a home for women and girls in our community. Originally founded to meet the women's health and wellness needs through recreation, over the last century, our programs have continued to evolve to meet the most pressing needs of our community. Today, our work is shaped around three core issues: ending gender-based violence, girls' empowerment, and advancing racial justice.
I was in this domestic violence almost for 10 years. And every time somebody said, like, why don't you go? And they just told you, like, okay, go, but they don't offer you, like, support and help. So when I came here and they told me that they can help me, that gave me, like, more freedom to look. And I feel like, okay, I have somebody in my back that helped me, and that organization like this, like, give you, like, the power to go and try by yourself, that you can do it and have somebody at your back.
From our monthly community meetings and youth programs to our community-wide annual Kwanzaa and Juneteenth celebrations, the YWCA of Glendale has been a source of support and a place of refuge for our members. They have assisted us in advocating for racial justice, diversity, and equity for our children in the Glendale Unified School District. And together, we have navigated a coalition that has moved our city to acknowledge this racial past, to address actions moving forward, and to pass the Sundown Town Resolution.
In the YWCA Girls Circle, for the most part, we socialize with one another. In some of our meetings, we invite a guest speaker to come and present, and because of this, All the girls in my girls circle along with me have been exposed to things like culture, art, self-care, racial justice, and many more. My favorite part about Girls Circle is when we have open discussions where judging is absolutely non-existent. To me, what girls empowerment means is to show everyone that we can be just as strong as anybody else. It means that we can do the impossible. It means that we can feel confident the moment we wake up. It means that we can go about our days without wondering if we're good enough, because we're already good enough. In fact, we're more than enough.
YWCA is a home when you are seeking safety.
YWCA is a home for girls' empowerment.
The YWCA is a home for racial justice work.
YWCA is a home for friendships.
YWCA is your home for support.
YWCA is a home to arts, education, and fun.
The YWCA is our community's home.
YWCA is your home.
Wow, every time I watch this video, I get choked up, not just because of the stories that were shared today, but I think about the countless number of women that are unable to find safety and those whose lives are sometimes cut short due to domestic violence. I think about the young girl who is struggling with body image issues, low self-esteem, and just doesn't think she's worthy enough. And I think about the mother who fears for her son's life every time he walks out the door because of the color of his skin. I have been that woman, I have been that girl, and I am that mother. We may not be able to reach every woman, girl, or child, but we know that anyone who walks through our doors, whether in Glendale or Pasadena, will be welcome and supported along their journey. A home cannot stand without a strong foundation. A home cannot stand without support. Our home cannot stand without you. This past year, we became a home to 2,600 survivors seeking our services, to nearly 200 girls in our now year-round empowerment programs, and we became home to a coalition advancing a historic racial justice initiative right here in Glendale. And our home has expanded as we join forces with YWCA Pasadena Foothill Valley to become YWCA Glendale and Pasadena. We want to continue to be your home, a home for the voiceless, a home for those seeking support, a home for those on the front lines of change, a home for gender and equity and racial justice, a home to girls to grow, to know their value, to be leaders of our community's needs, a home for healing, a home for change. Today, I'd like to ask you to make an investment in our community by donating to the YWCA. We need your support to fortify our home and the programs we house. We invite our community to invest in this work so we can continue moving forward, so we can continue answering the call each day to eliminate racism and empower women. I'd like to invite Jess back to introduce us to our final 2021 Heart and Excellence honorees.
Thank you, Tara. I couldn't agree more with everything that you just said, and that video certainly brought me to tears. So we are so excited because our service has now expanded to Pasadena, as we are now one with Glendale YWCA and YWCA Pasadena. So we are growing, and we are hoping that you all can grow with us. If you are able, please make a donation today. We are now at $37,700. Our goal for this event is to get to $40,000. So if you can help us get there, we would be so appreciative. I see a lot of support coming through, and we are inspired by your support, which enables us to provide the programs that we have featured in today's program. So with that, we're going to turn to one of my favorite parts of the program year over year, which is the 2021 Cammie's Courage Memorial Scholarship. So this scholarship was created in honor of Cammie Burton, the daughter of our dear friend and former YWCA Glendale, YWCA Glendale Board President Carol Ann Burton. Cammie Burton was an inspiration to our community. She dedicated countless hours to volunteer service and tragically lost her life in a car accident while serving as an AmeriCorps volunteer in Milwaukee. While she worked at a local health center, helping her community to address concerns around malaria and ending preventable child and maternal deaths. Each year, the Burton family creates a memorial scholarship of $1,000 to honor their daughter, and it is honored and awarded to an exceptional female, a high school senior who has made a significant contribution to the community. This year, I am so proud to tell you that this award has been given to Eulmessekian. So let us talk a little bit about Ani. Ani is a graduating senior at Herbert Hoover High School, completing advanced placement and honors classes with a weighted GPA of 4.5 and an impressive PSAT score of 1,400. Ani is considering a psychology neuroscience major with the ultimate goal of attending medical school. It is her service to the community that drew her to her application and nomination and ultimately allowed her to be selected for this scholarship. Ani has served as president of the Armenian Club for the past 3 years, is a project leader for Girls Who Code, and has served as a historian for Essensia's Service Awareness Program for the past 3 years. Ani is a dedicated community volunteer who has inspired others through her leadership with direct service work, which includes packaging and sending medical supplies to doctors in developing countries, with the foundation Mending Kids Facility, organization educational plays through the Armenian and Cultural Society, raising awareness about Artsakh by writing articles and attending protests, and raising funds for the Armenian Fund through her own jewelry website. She has received the Community Service Award each year since entering high school and received a Junior Volunteer of the Year award from Essensia Service Awareness Program. We are so honored to recognize her today and cannot wait to see what Ani accomplishes. So with that, we're going to go ahead and transition to our second and final conversation with our Heart and Excellent Award recipients today. We are thrilled to recognize Gloria Salas with the 2021 Community Service Award. If you follow social media, Gloria is a familiar face. We have highlighted her as she brought funding to supplies for survivors this year. Gloria led raising awareness around the shadow pandemic of violence against women during COVID, organizing educational talks and community supply drives to support survivors fleeing abusive relationships. As a leader of Zonta, serving as the Area 3 District Director for Zonta International District and the immediate past president of Zonta Burbank, Gloria has been a shining example of the service and leadership advancing gender equity. Elen, Asatryan, our 2021 Social Justice honoree. Well known to our community and on the national stage, Elen is a force for the Armenian cause. She has used her expertise in political consulting and strategic communications to raise awareness for the Armenian genocide and the war in Artsakh, leading the call for recognizing these atrocities so the history may not repeat itself. And now, Marie. Marie Lemelle is our 2021 Trailblazer honoree. As the second African-American woman to become Commissioner of the City of Glendale, Marie carries special insight into the history of the women of color's leadership in our city. Since serving on the Commission on the Public Status of Women, she has continued to break ground with her public relations and communications work as founder and CEO of Platinum Star Public Relations and Platinum Star Media Group as an entertainment company. And I think we didn't mention this earlier, but she is also a sponsor of the event today. A longtime Glendale resident, Marie puts her daily philosophy into practice through her transformational branding and marketing skills to both empower her clients and champion the rights of women and vulnerable communities. And now Gabrielle. You may not have known her name, but you will remember last summer's historic march for Black Lives in Glendale, which drew thousands to our streets, demanding an end to police brutality and calling for racial justice. Gabrielle Scott, our 2021 Young Woman honoree, is the force behind this galvanizing event. As a graduating senior, she, along with 2 other high school students, made history by organizing this catalytic event that ignited change needed to move Glendale on a path forward to social justice and equity. So with that, Tara, please take it away. Ladies.
Sorry, no one can hear me. I just realized I was muted. Sorry about that. Okay. Again, thank you guys for being here. Welcome. I've had the privilege of learning from and partnering with many of you on key initiatives in our community. This was a watershed year for social justice and social change. And we're continuing to see unrest in our communities throughout the country. The issues many of you have spent your careers and lives focused on were at the center of media and national attention. There were moments that felt so dire, then times where everything seemed possible. I want to dive into a conversation about racial justice, gender equity, and social justice, and how each of you have led on those issues and created change. Gloria, I'd love to start the conversation with you. You've been a leader for Zonta with a focus on addressing violence against women. As COVID-19 created a shadow pandemic of increased violence against women and children across the globe, can you share how you stepped up your work to address the issue and provided much needed support to organizations serving survivors?
First of all, Tara, I want to thank you and your team for bestowing this honor on us. So thank you and your team, just in case you didn't hear. I'm, first of all, very honored to be in the company of Wonder Women. It just humbles me so much. But secondly, with reference to your question, I belong to several organizations, and whether the members realize it or not, we actually adhere to the philosophy of Ubuntu, which is an African philosophy that basically says, I am because we are. And I don't do any of this alone. I do it with a team of people who have my belief system of providing support and empowering women. And we combat domestic violence, gender violence, human trafficking, child marriage. And when the pandemic first started back in early days of March, we were already hearing and reading reports on the rise in domestic violence in Europe, because Zonta International has clubs all over the world. And little by little, as we were starting to become more aware of the surge in domestic violence cases, it started coming here to the United States. And then it was becoming that shadow pandemic. And it seemed that New York City and major cities throughout the country were posting on their websites how domestic violence victims can get help by using the hotlines. And so in our ways of trying to combat this, we personally in Zonta can't go out. We don't offer the resources that the YWCA does or Family Service Agency does, but we can support by financing or collecting toiletries. And one of the things that we did was, when one of our investments came up for refunding, we had the conversation. And it's a difficult conversation because the pandemic brought to us the unknown. were we going to be able to have funding to allow us to continue our work in the next year? We didn't know how long this pandemic would be. So we decided as a foundation that what is our mission? Our mission is to empower and to support women and to combat gender violence. So we as a team felt that we needed to help the YWCA because the YWCA was at that moment feeling its own surge of domestic violence victims. And as a team, we chose the Y and the Family Service Agency to give our donation. And this is through our fundraising. And we thought, another opportunity will come and we'll fundraise some more and help out the organizations that need the assistance. And as the year went by, we decided to use our holiday program as how can we continue helping domestic violence victims? And we reached out again to the YWCA, and through conversations with your team member, we were able to adopt a domestic violence survivor and her family and provide them with hopefully a joyful Christmas. And the pandemic continued. And so what are we going to do? But in conversation again with one of your team members, we were notified that because of the surge in domestic violence victims, your hygiene supply had run pretty low. So again, we got together and decided that most of us have connections in other organizations. So we put out the word that we needed to help build up the supply of hygiene items. And so, as you know, we were able to give an initial donation of 60 bags, and we're still in the process of creating more bags, and the word went out. And as I said earlier, it's not I am because of the we, and the word went out to the Burbank for Armenia and Burbank Human Relations Council and our Peace and Justice, and all these people just came together. We put out the word that we needed to help the YWCA and domestic violence victims, and we absolutely were overwhelmed by the answer to our plea.
Thank you. We were so grateful for all of your support and all the work that you have done as part of Zonta and the greater community. Elen, thank you for joining us. I want to switch to you a little bit, and I think one of the things I want to talk with you about is a lot of people may not know, but you really played a pivotal role in addressing domestic violence and making sure violence against women was addressed in our city of Glendale long before the pandemic. And you've also been really active in addressing the Armenian genocide and the war. Can you tell me a little bit about just how all of those issues intersect for you and how you address those issues, and what has been the most challenging but also the most uplifting part of the work that you've been able to do for our community?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank the YWCA for this honor and for all the incredible work that you do. I'm extremely thrilled to be sharing the stage with such accomplished women who make changes in our community. But I'll start back with maybe the domestic violence issue, because I used to serve as the executive director of the YWCA Glendale starting in 2006 through 2013. And during that time, we had an overwhelming Armenian American population that didn't speak English, and the YW.
Uh-oh. We may have lost Elen. Uh-oh. Hopefully she'll come back on. I think we lost her. Uh-oh. All right, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Welcome to the world of virtual events. Hopefully Elen will be able to get back on. And I know Gabrielle is not here with us as well, and wanted to kind of speak with her about the work that she did around the March for Black Lives and social justice. But I'll just go ahead and move forward to Marie, because Marie, you are someone we are honoring with a Trailblazer Award, and you are someone who has been in the community for many, many years, have been working on issues. You were served as the second and the last African-American commissioner of the city of Glendale on the Commission of Status of Women. Can you share about your experience and how you continue to blaze a trail in your personal and professional life?
Well, thank you very much for asking that question, Tara, and thanks to the YWCA for this amazing honor and all the other honorees. I have to dedicate my wonderful award to my parents, the memory of my parents, because they were the ones who instilled community and always reaching out to your neighbors and family and friends to make sure that their well-being is in your minds and your hearts. And that's what the YWCA is all about. When I came to Glendale in 2005, I have to say there were a lot of people that were a little surprised because of Glendale's previous history of racism. So I am not one to back down, and it was a great challenge for me in the sense of I didn't look at it as a place that didn't want people of color in their city, but also as a place of a chance to change. And that's what it's all about. COVID showed us that we need to change for the better, and we have to start within ourselves and not judge people just for the way they look. So I was able to make some differences just by reaching out to communities that I was not familiar with before, and making that part of my fabric of living here and being a part of a group of people who just want to live a nice life and create a better way of life for those and look out for one another. And one of the things that I was able to do is raise awareness about human trafficking and domestic violence through my writing. I write for the Los Angeles Way newspaper. So that's a way of creating a platform for those that are simply invisible, but also in pain. And this is why this is so important to me to be a part of the YWCA family and this village of wonderful women who know what it's like to have the support you need to keep going forward.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you so much for that. It is so important to have people who paved the way, and I feel really honored to know you and to learn about your history and involvement in the city of Glendale. And I think that you create an inspiration for so many women in our community. And I could not be more inspired by all the work that you all do. But I'm also inspired by young people who are doing this work and young leaders that are emerging. And Gabrielle has joined us, and I am so happy to see your face, Gabrielle. Thank you so much for being here. So last June, as a high school senior, you inspired all of us. Your energy, commitment, and community organizing skills that led to the Glendale's March for Black Lives, drawing thousands to march in demand of an end to police brutality and racial justice. Can you share with us a bit about your experience in putting on what would be a historic event for Glendale and a true turning point for our city's reckoning of its history of racism?
Yeah, so it was definitely a bit of a wild ride. I remember even as I was getting there the day of, I still had like no conception of how many people were going to be there, how many people were going to show up and fight for this. And I don't think any of us had really any conception of how big it was going to be. But like we said at the end, we called and Glendale came. So I think this was really a necessary step for our city. And even at the time, I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went with regard to Glendale's history of racism as not only a sundown town, but also as the headquarters of the KKK and a rallying place for Nazis. So in that regard, I learned a lot about the history of our city and our collective history as residents of Glendale. So it's been really great to see us move forward from that. And I think the march, I hope the march was integral to that.
Great, thank you. And Gabrielle, I just want to know, just like personally, what obstacle did you face? And then what advice do you have for any young folks that want to get involved in advocacy and want to get involved in making a change in their community?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, not everyone is, there's a lot of political contention around Black Lives Matter, and there's a lot of bad media, I would say. So in my own family, there are some people who did not support what I was doing, and that was kind of rough, but you move on from that. I know what we did was a good thing. And then for young people, I think the biggest thing is to reach out to community leaders like you and Tanita and Tasha, because without you guys, I don't think it would have happened. A lot of the credit, most of the credit goes to you.
Not at all. Not at all. I think, one of the moments I remember as you were planning this march in Glendale, and there was a lot of concerns at that time around, people coming into Glendale and looting and all that negative stuff. So I'm just really honored that we were able to support you. And I'm excited to honor you with our Young Woman Award. You are truly amazing. And thank you for being here with us today. I'm going to segue back to Elen, since we lost her. Elen, I want you to just bring us home because, you, again, I think you cover so many different sectors. You were a speaker at the March for Black Lives as well. You were you're advocating for the Armenian community on so many different levels. You're an advocate for women, so many things that you are on the front lines doing. So I want to just kind of bring it home with you to help just kind of talk with us and share with us, the importance of really working at those intersections of all the work that you do.
So I think that it boils down to three things: equity, proper representation on all fronts, not just your government, but your nonprofit organizations and your corporations. And of course, having the ability to unite people around these causes, finding that common ground. I think what we've lost along the way, and particularly during the pandemic, is people actually speaking to each other and the changes that we see because of social media. And so I think my role has been, if I've seen something that I haven't agreed with or that I think that we can make better, it's, I've taken it upon myself to try to bring people together around that cause. I think especially when it comes to politics and women, creating opportunities, especially for young women, to have a seat at the table has been a particular passion of mine. Throughout the years, I found myself to be, especially in the Armenian American community, as I've climbed up the ladder, to be the only woman a lot of times in that room, and that for me is absolutely unacceptable. And when we talk about access and proper representation, when I look back to the Glendale I grew up in, we had to fight very hard to ensure that we had Armenian American police officers. We had a lot of issues within our own police department. The city permitting process was not what it used to be. And so for me, for example, what happened with the Black community last year and what's happening now with the Asian community is something that I relate to, not just as a Glendalian, but as a descendant of an Armenian genocide survivor, right? So I think finding that commonality and uniting people around the cause is particularly important to me. But I know Gabrielle is here, so I wanted to most definitely tell you how much you've inspired not just our community, but I think your work goes beyond Glendale and inspiring young people to be involved. I got involved when I was 15, and when I think back to my first school board meeting complaining about discrimination in our schools against our own community, I've always said that it could have been any other community and I would have done the same. So I hope particularly young people find their voice and know that their voice matters. So.
Great, thank you. And thank you guys so much. And before we leave, just if we have a girls empowerment program and we are working with young girls who are really trying to find their way and their voice. If you have one word of encouragement for them, what would that word be for these young girls that are just now starting on their journey and their path? And I want to start with Marie. Oh, Marie, you're on mute. Okay, there we go. Go ahead, Marie. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. I would say always believe in yourself. Young people, never give up. Just believe in yourself. You know you can do whatever it is you want. Transform your goal to greatness.
Thanks, Marie. Gloria.
I would say togetherhood. Find someone who believes in you, believes in your cause, because you can go much farther when you have someone at your side to help you achieve your goal.
Thank you. Elen.
I definitely say do what makes you sleep well at night. You're going to have a lot of naysayers and people that are going to say you're too young or it's not the right time. I think when you work through things through your heart in an empathetic way, then you should just be accountable to yourself, because at the end of the day, that's all you have.
Thank you. And last but not least, Gabrielle.
My word would be go. Do it.
Do it.
Whatever it is that you're passionate about, do it. Put in your full energy. Go.
Thank you guys so much. You are inspiration to young girls, young people, and women and communities. And so I appreciate this moment we got to spend together. And I am so honored to recognize you all as our Heart and Excellence honorees. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so thank you all so much for coming to the end of our hour. I hear that we are close to our goal of 40,000. I don't think we're there yet, but hopefully we'll get there before the end. We're at 39,550, so we're very close. So any last minute folks want to give, please donate to us. Jess, welcome back.
Thank you. No, I am so inspired by everything that everyone had to say and the courage of the women that we have featured today. You know, I strive to always be more like the ladies that we have honored today. And on behalf of the YWCA Glendale Pasadena, we are just honored to celebrate these women. So what an awesome way to kind of end the event.
Great. Thank you all for being here with us. Please stay connected with us. We have a few community events coming up that we would love for you to be part of, including our Stand Against Racism, Stop AAPI Hate event on April 28th. Please visit our website for more information. Be safe and be well.